How involved was Turning Point with the events that took place on January 6th at the Capitol? It's really a question because while everybody carries on about how, oh, Israel or AIPAC or the Jews, they make their, even though they don't come out and say it, that's the direction they're all going and trying to say that he was all against Israel. No, I think he wanted to go in that direction. Again, he came in with Candace. It's a whole network, okay? And I think his base was wanting, because these idiots, these people that are America last, Steve Bannon, Candace Owens, I don't care what anybody says, they're all America last because they go back to the America First agenda, which back in the 20s or 40s, it was actually a Nazi term. It was American Nazis that wanted us to be isolationists. They didn't want us to go into World War II. Can you imagine if we didn't go into World War II? Yeah, that would have really, Joe Kennedy would have been thrilled about that because he really wanted to keep us out of that, but then he hated Jews. The reason I say this is because while everybody carries on about AIPAC and the Jews and Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump had posted, and this was several weeks ago, why was the wonderful Turning Point under investigation by deranged Jack Smith and the corrupt and incompetent Biden administration? They tried to force Charlie and many other people and movements out of business. They weaponized the Justice Department against Sleepy Joe Biden's political opponents, including me. They allowed the daughter of a judge on one of the corrupt trials against. Then, I can't read the top line, but unprecedented conflict of interest. Every leading legal analyst and pundit said this trial was wrong and should not have been allowed to go forward, but it did because of a corrupt judge who will hopefully pay a very big price for his legal action someday. You could see this was September 19th. So as you could see, he's saying that they tried to force Charlie and many other people and movements out of business. Now, your first thought would be, well, of course, then Charlie Kirk is innocent. No, I don't think so. No, because when you start looking in to, because again, what is he saying here? So I looked up, why, I understand Jack Smith is deranged, okay? But why, what was the reasoning for the investigation? And what you find out is the same bullshit that is on the left is on the right. That's really what it comes down to. So the worst part about this is January 6th, Charlie Kirk, I think all these people, Turning Point and all these other big donors, they just pocket the money. Charlie Kirk and Turning Point screwed over a bunch of students. They were supposed to bus to that event to hear Trump, and then used this money that they got from donors that came into them almost like to just give it to each other and then serve, not bringing people into Donald Trump. This is why Charlie Kirk had nothing to do with Trump getting elected. I've said this from the beginning. Oh, he got elected because of Charlie Kirk. No, he didn't. Donald Trump already had the numbers. These people go out of their way to take ownership like that they're responsible when Donald Trump never needed any of their help. He can do it on his own. But Charlie Kirk had promised to bring 80 busloads of students in to hear Donald Trump at the Ellipse. At the last minute, he only brought 7 buses. All of those students screwed over that were planning to go. So I started looking into it. I'm like, well, then where did the money go? Charlie Kirk raised money intending to transport a large number of college students to the January 6th rally. However, only 7 buses actually made the trip, carrying roughly 350 students. Yeah, and then makes it clear that none of those people went to march on the Capitol, where all the violence took place. Okay. The fund raised the funds raised but not used for transportation were redirected by Kirk and his associates to support other conservative political activities and candidates. So while the initial plan was to use the money primarily for student transportation to the event, Kirk did not use all the funds for that purpose. Instead, the unused funds were spent on broader mobilization, media campaigns, political advertising, and supporting Republican candidates, consistent with Turning Point USA's ongoing political goals. Like, this was supposed to be all about Trump. Hate Turning Point, I really do. I've never trusted them. This redirection has been cited as a strategic decision reflecting logistical challenges and other concerns. Well, there were students and groups who were expecting to go to the January 6th rally via buses organized by Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, but many of those bus trips were canceled at the last minute. Charlie Kirk initially announced that over 80 buses of supporters, mainly students, would be sent to Washington, D.C. for the rally. However, at the end, only 7 buses actually made the trip. Then what he did was this all goes back to this far right-wing Christian radical crazy people and Heritage Found. I can't stand any of them. I'm really just, unfiltered right now. When I get, when this kind of stuff, it's like when I don't trust these people to begin with, and then I come across this, and it's like nobody held them accountable. Of course not. It's not like the right is going to say, the right's too busy, worshiping Charlie Kirk. But he redirected the funds. Charlie Kirk raised significant funds for January 6th rally, including $1.25 million from major donors like Publix Harris, Julie Jenkins, Fancelli. While funds were intended to pay for transportation of supporters for over 80 buses, only 7 buses carrying 350 students actually arrived. And then it went on to say he redirected it to Christine Wren. And then she distributed it to the Tea Party Express. None of that serving Donald Trump. None of it. I'm not saying give the money, but I'm saying that the whole point was to bring here Charlie Kirk had his grassroots movement, and then he screwed all the students over. Because I'm telling you, he wasn't MAGA. I don't even care what the Trumps say. He wasn't MAGA. He attached himself to MAGA, and he was creating his own movement. So it says here, Carolyn Wren, a top Trump fundraiser, coordinated routing the money to various political aligned nonprofits, including Turning Point USA, Turning Point Action, Tea Party Express, and the Republican Attorneys General Association's Rule of Law Defense Fund. While the funds helped support the organization and mobilization for the January 6th rally, they were also used for broader political objectives, such as promoting and supporting Republican candidates in key races like the Georgia Senate race. Documents and texts reveal Wren parked funds with different groups to provide institutional support and mask donor identities, leveraging the rally as a platform to amplify conservative campaigns and messaging. Turning Point Action used part of this funding to mobilize youth activists, social media influencers, create signature video content, educating millions on the significance of January 6th in the context of Trump's political agenda. You jackasses, none of you people ever care about the average people. You screwed all those students over. You made it all about the Republicans that are all jerk-offs, in my opinion. You made it all about them, redirected the funds while you screwed over everyday Americans. Way to go, Turning Point.